Mm-hmm. Hello, everybody. Welcome to NFA Live, the live stream on Thursday, and I am joined, as ever, from Guy. Are you in Dubai now, or where are you at?
Yes, I am in Dubai, Rob.
Great. Well, thanks for stopping by and being part of NFA Live yet again. And also, Ben from the CRYPTOVERSE. Ben, how's things going?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pretty good. All right, we got a lot of things to cover. We're going to take a look at just where things are going, especially taking a look at Bitcoin, Ethereum. Then we're going to talk about tomorrow, March 7th, as we have some kind of White House meeting or a symposium. Also, I want to share with you some fake information that was put out about who is attending. I want to get your guys' opinion about, is this a buy the rumor, sell the news event, or is everything going to go parabolic just on Friday with who knows what kind of announcements? And then lastly, I want to talk about just portfolio protection. I know this is all great and rumors are fun, but really should we be a little bit more responsible? So we'll go through that. And then lastly, just want to talk about what kind of mistakes you guys have personally made along the way just this year. I know I've got a pretty good one to share. So let's jump into it. So first things first. Well, first of all, if you're not following these guys, they did a great couple of videos that I'm going to be referencing today. Those videos are linked in the description, so you can check those out. This one, the crypto trend that could change everything, was a fantastic one. And also, I like this one, Ben, the butterfly effect, which we'll be talking about. So first things first. Ben's like, yeah, sure. First things first. So, Guy, you and Nick, you touched on Ethereum's bullish future and Bitcoin potentially hitting 200K. I appreciate the price prediction. Well, why do you see Bitcoin and Ethereum going higher, especially to those levels? And where do you see? I didn't find it, but where do you guys see Ethereum going? So, what is your bullish case right now, especially with everything that's going on?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's start with Bitcoin. And yeah, I mean, I'm the first to admit that kind of the last couple of months have sort of forced me, and I think Nick would say as well, just to sort of reevaluate how bullish we were at the start of the year. But as many people, Ben in particular, and others have pointed out, these kind of pullbacks like we're seeing at the moment are kind of par for the course during bull markets. So our outlook remains kind of long-term bullish. As far as Bitcoin is concerned, obviously, there's all this kind of talk around a strategic reserve in the US, which I think I'm beginning to think more and more is just BS, really. I don't think it means anything. I don't even think a strategic reserve is a particularly good idea. And I kind of think it's hot air. So, I mean, we can talk about this maybe in the next section where we sort of talk about this White House meeting. But I think Bitcoin's narrative remains as strong as ever. The digital gold narrative, the portfolio hedge, if you like, for traditional investors, institutions, high net worth individuals, or just kind of regular investors alike. Also, there's the historical precedent that you see with ETFs. I remember the Bitwise guys pointing this out, and I think I've talked about this on the show before. Historically, ETFs tend to do even better in their second and third years than they do in their debut years. Now, obviously, the spot Bitcoin ETFs had one hell of a debut year, so perhaps this time is different. And obviously, it's been. Just last week, the spot Bitcoin ETFs saw their biggest ever daily outflows. So it might sound a bit, crazy to be saying, well, they could well outperform this year or perform better than they did last year. But really, like I say, Bitcoin's narrative remains strong. I think people are becoming more and more aware of it. More and more, investment advisors, independent financial advisors, etc., are beginning to get access to the spot ETFs, to recommend the spot ETFs to clients. And I think Bitcoin is likely to kind of continue in that vein. People are going to continue accumulating it as a hedge asset. Kind of regular investors are, and I think we'll see the sort of dedicated Bitcoin players, the Michael Saylors and all his disciples of this world. I think we'll continue to see them buying as well. But what it really needs, and what crypto as a whole needs, Ethereum, altcoins even more so than Bitcoin, but we just need to see we need to see an end to the chaos that I think Trump has probably deliberately sown in his first few weeks. All this uncertainty around tariffs, all this uncertainty around other sort of geopolitical flashpoints, geopolitical topics. I think we need to see that level off. I think we need to see a clearer picture. What effects are these tariffs going to have? Are they going to be inflationary? Are they not going to be inflationary? Is the Fed going to make cuts? Is, as Ben talks about so often, is QT going to come to an end? Which is why sort of my time horizon has kind of lengthened a bit. But I would think by the end of Q4, by the end of this year, so Q4 this year, I would think that Bitcoin would be, pushing that sort of north of 150K level, assuming that the Trump chaos sort of simmers down. So that's Bitcoin. Ethereum's a trickier one because it doesn't have that strong narrative. It does have spot ETFs, but regular investors don't really seem to get Ethereum or what it's about. So as I've said before, I think Ethereum's future now lies in pursuing institutional capital, in becoming the blockchain of choice for institutions, and obviously the big sector, if you like, where it can do that is the tokenization of real world assets, RWAs, because Ethereum has that decentralization, it has that programmability, and it has that security. I don't want to make a price prediction for ETH because I just think it's still so unclear. There's still so much that has to happen. I think it can likely recover against the dollar. But against Bitcoin is another matter entirely. So all I'll say is I hold ETH at the moment. I'm not buying any more, and I don't plan to anytime soon. I want to see what the new direction is under this change of leadership at the Ethereum Foundation. I want to see some clarity on the roadmap. Are they still going to go ahead with sharding? Because layer 2 sort of, kind of took that narrative of that scaling narrative and sort of took it away from sharding. So what happens there? What happens with Etherealize, this body that's been set up specifically to market Ethereum to institutions? So there's a lot of things that need to happen first. But I think, like I say, I think ETH can recover in dollar terms, but it's probably still going to struggle against BTC.
Yeah, well said. I like your take. I like it because it's cautious, it's mature, and it actually says to everybody that's out there, like, look, nothing is guaranteed. And I like the whole part where you said, I think it's hot air, because no one's going to say that. No one's going to say that as far as the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. Guy, I think you're the first person that I've heard so far that has said, I don't think this is going to happen. And I have to commend you for it, because a lot of people won't say that. Hey,
well,
it is what it is.
Watch as I'm proved wrong.
Who knows? We've been hearing about it forever, and now here we are. So Ben, same type of thing that goes to you. I just want to piggyback off that question. You talked about in your latest video the butterfly effect, that Ethereum can break into out to the $6,000 level. So if we're taking a look at technical indicators, which I am not a professional at that in any way, shape, or form, what are you looking at to confirm that possibility?
So I've been following this. We talked about this for a while. Can you share my screen? Yeah. So we've talked about this for a little while. The idea of Ethereum, quote unquote, going home, sort of been the meme on my channel for probably the last couple of years. And I think that, first of all, the fact that I'm even discussing Elliott waves is somewhat desperate, I think. But with that said, there's something in Elliott wave theory called what's it called? Here it is. It's called the bearish Gartley butterfly. And I've actually been tracking this for the last like 2 to 3 years. And I just want to kind of share it because it is sort of playing out. But essentially what it is you have sort of 5 primary points, X, A, B, C, and D, And we'll talk about that blue line later. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But basically the idea is this, right? You have like a bull market peak, which is X. You go down to A, and then you go up to B, which B could be any one of these three peaks because they're all at the same level. And then C is somewhere like down here, and then D is up here. Now, hold on. Now the idea is that this works if these actually match. So like, look at the, when you go X to A to B, you can see that B, especially if you go to this like first peak right here, it's around the 0.786, which is exactly that distance right there. Like X to B is the 786, right? And then if you were to look at A to C, it's anywhere from the 382 to the 886. Now, the reason why I've been looking at this for so long is because the 382 was as high as that first drop by Ethereum, that first drop before it went back up and tried again. So it first tried again at the 382, which still would have been this pattern sort of completing had it gone to new highs. But I always was talking about the idea of it ultimately going home, right? Which means it could go as low as the 0.886. Now, the 0.886 is all the way down here, deeper into the regression band, right? And the reason I bring that up is because if you go look at last cycle for Ethereum, it had this higher low structure, just like it's had this cycle, that eventually it broke down from, right? So last cycle, we saw ETH/USD break down from this higher low structure right there. And it looks like this cycle, it's breaking down right here.
Yeah,
now,
Ben, hold on one second. Hold on. Sorry to interrupt. Everybody's saying that they can't see the screen. I can see it with us. I don't know if everybody else can see it.
They'll just be more confused. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, everybody. Now name here says now we can. That was weird. Maybe just my voice. My voice commands it to actually happen.
Maybe they're just messing with you. Maybe
they are. That's a lot of people messing with me, which couldn't be surprising on my channel.
It's probably better if they don't see this.
So Ben, just give them a real quick summary. We could have been anywhere. This is what it sounds like.
Basically, the point is that after ETH/USD broke down last cycle, ETH Bitcoin bottomed when the Fed ended quantitative tightening a month or two later. So if the Fed ends QT a month or two later, you maybe see this play out in a very similar fashion. So the idea of it potentially going to 6K, I don't think it would happen anytime soon. I think it would be much later on this year if we're so lucky. But basically, the idea would be going deeper into the regression band and then getting that rally up to this D level, which would, basically be those extensions that you see on the chart, right? I mean, it could be as low as the 1.618, which is a little less than 6K. It could be as high as the 2.24, which is over, about 7,500. Look, I'm really not that big of a believer in Elliott wave theory, to be completely honest, because it sort of seems like no matter what happens, you can find some Elliott wave thing to sort of justify what's going on. But the reason I found that one, to be honest, the reason why I found that one interesting was because it confirmed my bias a long time ago that Ethereum would eventually break down from this higher low structure, sort of go into the regression band, and then get a move back up after the Fed pivots monetary policy, right? So that's basically where it's coming from. So kind of like Guy, I mean, like if it happens, it probably won't happen for a little while, right? And ETH could very well go deeper into the regression band before it does that. In fact, if it were to go to the sort of that bottom level, you could argue that would be the more likely scenario. But that's the idea.
Got it. All right. So sorry about that for the people who couldn't see it in the background, but looks like Ethereum might not be dead, but we'll find out. I'm just waiting for the t-shirt to see if I can actually rock that one. Anyhow, so let's move on. That was just a warm-up question. Let's get to the big question everybody wants to know about, which was tomorrow, March 7th. Guy, I already know your opinion on this one. Hot air, which I got to tell you, pretty good. Where do we at? Where do we think we're going with this one? Is tomorrow just going to be a big nothing burger. And also, I'll remind you, first of all, can everybody see this screen? I just want to make sure. This was apparently the list of invitees. And we've got everybody. Man, it says now we still don't see the screen. Let's see. How about here? How about here?
Yeah,
okay.
I see it.
I don't know. Maybe there's something on my end. But yeah, so we see like there's a bunch of people. Now there was the big five that was revealed by Truth Social. That would be Bitcoin #1, Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, and XRP. And we've got a lot of people who are being invites. However, it looks like this was not true because Charles Hoskinson came out just recently, I think it was this morning, actually 11 hours ago, and said, yeah, I wasn't even invited to this. So they talked about Cardano coming in, but I didn't receive an invite. So I'm not going to this event. So again, is this where we want to start off with? Is this going to be the big thing, or is this going to be a buy the rumor, sell the news? And Ben, since you were talking, I'll start off with you.
Probably depends on what they even mean by reserve, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's sort of, there's like a big question on what they even mean. Like, is the reserve just the Bitcoin they already have? And they're just going to say, this is our reserve, which doesn't necessarily add any new buying pressure. You know, for the altcoins, if it's an altcoin reserve, which seems kind of weird, like, I guess it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, you're going to go cut taxpayer dollars in other places, which I'm not saying they shouldn't be. I mean, I do think there's excess, but it seems a little weird to go like cut taxpayer dollars just to buy altcoins. You know, like it's like Trump's just making the same mistakes everyone else makes every cycle, where they start off with Bitcoin and then they go into altcoin post-halving year, and then they regret it in the bear market year. So I do wonder if we're kind of seeing the same thing happen again. But I guess it depends on what they even mean by a reserve. I think that has a lot to do with it. If it's just, hey, these projects are going to donate, you know, some altcoins to a wallet that the U.S. government controls, and we're going to call it a strategic reserve, that isn't probably nearly as bullish for those altcoins. If it's, hey, we're going to actually buy this stuff, that I guess would be more, you know, more optimistic for those coins. But I'm kind of with Guy. Like, I just don't understand like the justification for it. I think you can kind of sort of make it work for a Bitcoin reserve, but even for that, like, I'm not entirely convinced that's the right decision for the asset class. Like, I don't really know that that's the right decision for the altcoin market. It just seems like a completely ridiculous thing. Like, why add just like random altcoins? You know, we got all these founders for them. They have large bags they could sell. In fact, many of them have sold in prior bull market peaks. It just doesn't, I guess it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, it seems like it's more so just enriching the sort of the VCs that started these projects, and obviously retail's cheering them on because they want to experience the upside too. But imagine trying to convince like an average person that's not in crypto, like, why this is a good thing, you know? Like, it'd be such a hard thing to rationalize, like, why this would be a good thing. And like, if they're going to have a strategic reserve, you know, if they're going to go that route, like, why not invest in like companies? Like, why not go with like Apple and Microsoft and Google and those sorts of things? Why go for, you know, altcoins that are notorious for dropping like 98% in midterm years, which is next year, you know, so it just sort of seems like setting up for not really a great outcome by the end of 2026. That doesn't mean there can't be some, you know, good times between now and then. But it just seems like at the end of the day, they're going to have sort of some explaining to do, and it's going to be hard to justify to the world, I think, like, why this was ever a good idea. Again, I think with Bitcoin, even though I'm still not convinced with Bitcoin that it's a good idea, it at least makes a little bit more sense than adding a lot of random altcoins to a strategic reserve. So my guess is they're gonna, you know, Bitcoin got them interested. They're gonna make the same mistakes that every one of us made when we first joined crypto. They're gonna get more interested in altcoins. They're gonna get ripped a new one and wish they had just stuck with Bitcoin. Is my guess.
That's pretty good. Gonna get ripped a new one. Yeah, that's gonna happen. Especially, we'll see how it goes. Guy, anything to add in this one besides just where you think it's going? Anything to piggyback?
Yeah, can you just share my screen, throw up my screen for a moment? Because Nick Carter, who has this isn't the first time he's been critical of the strategic reserve idea, but he put this out on CoinDesk a couple of days ago, and it reinforced a lot of the concerns that I had about the strategic reserve, and introduced some new ones. I mean, what Ben was saying, I just want to scroll down to. Yeah, here, there's no strategic value in a crypto reserve. Nick Carter points out here, you take the example of the strategic petroleum reserve, which I think Biden actually ran down quite a lot a couple of years ago. That's a strategic reserve. It's something that's in reserve that you may need to strategically deploy if there's a shortage. In this case, he wanted to keep gas prices low, so as all you Americans could drive to the shops. And I think as Nick says in the article, things like copper, other metals, weapons, strategic. These are all things to have in a strategic reserve. I mean, under what circumstances would you deploy this strategic reserve? Well, under what circumstances would you deploy the strategic reserve of BTC? And to piggyback off Ben's comment, under what fathomable circumstances would you deploy your strategic reserve of XRP, ADA, SOL, whatever? Like it just doesn't seem like, I don't know. I feel now that it's an idea that everyone that Trump sort of said during, because it was Bitcoin, the Bitcoin Miami conference last year, wasn't it? He sort of said it, and everyone went, "Wow, that sounds great," and kind of jumped aboard. And really, as we've said before, like he always had that out because the US already holds a shit ton of Bitcoin, so. It can just sort of hold on to it. But I think now this idea of a strategic reserve has just sort of, it's the genie that's sort of got out of the bottle, and it's kind of flying around the place, and everyone's projecting their hopes and dreams onto it for it to send their bags to the moon. And I agree with Nick Carter, and I urge everyone to watching to read that article, because he makes, he sets out several, I think it's 8 reasons in total why he thinks it's a bad idea, and they all make a lot of sense. So strategic reserve, I mean, I think it's hot air. And if we're talking about this White House crypto summit in particular, that's tomorrow, I kind of feel like, I guess there'll probably be more talk around a strategic reserve. What will be interesting will be to see who is really in the room. Obviously, we've had a lot. I think there's been a lot of lists making the rounds on Twitter, and most, if not all of them, have been fake. Some names seem like a given. You'd imagine that the likes of Howard Lutnick and Michael Saylor will probably be there. That makes perfect sense. And it makes perfect sense as well to have, people, I guess people like Jeremy Allaire, for instance, the chairman of a US stablecoin issuer. Like, all these people make sense, but we won't really know until we see who's there. So that's the first thing. That'll be really interesting to see. But will they then emerge with any sort of master plan? Will they then emerge and go, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is the direction of travel for crypto in the US from here on out. They might, but I'd be surprised if they did. I really would. I think it'll be more sort of, oh yeah, we're going to make crypto's going to find a home in the US. We're going to bring in regulations and stuff. Great. What we actually need is regulations. We have had positive news with the SEC dropping a load of these lawsuits. That is really good. And as I've said before, like, under different circumstances, that would have pumped the market big time. But the circumstances are what we are. But are they going to come out and say, this is what's happening, this is the plan, join us for the ride, buckle the hell up? I kind of don't think so, but I hope I'm wrong.
Rob, can I add something?
Yes. What do you got, man?
I was just gonna say, like, kind of what Guy was saying about, when you have reserves, like, what's the point of a reserve? and it's when you have shortages. So I mean, if they're, I guess if they're, are they expecting like a worldwide altcoin shortage? You know, that they're going to have to deploy these altcoins. But the point though, like, and a lot of people keep saying, well, like, why is this, or why are these people being so bearish? But the thing is like, if you have a reserve and they ever do anything with it, right? I mean, what are they going to do with it? The idea is if you have a reserve, you sell it during a time when, you know, the prices are high. So if anything, you would argue that, like, you know, like if there's this oil shortage, they will then, you know, bring some of that oil online so that people can use it, like Guy said, and people can actually drive places and not have to spend a fortune on gas. So I guess I just don't understand what they're ever going to do with it other than sell it, right? So selling it wouldn't really be a good thing. It would just put downward pressure on the market. I think a lot of people are just more interested in like what it's going to do for their bags tomorrow, not like the longer term implications of it. And I don't really understand it. I guess I just don't really understand it. I mean, I think if they had just gone with Bitcoin, it would have been a little bit more easier to a pill to swallow. Even then, I'm not sure I agree with it, but I don't know, adding like 7 altcoins. They just added a new one, apparently, according to the chat. I don't understand it.
Rob, can you share my screen again?
Okay, let's hold on real quick. Let me do this and then do this. Okay, everybody should see this now.
Okay, so there's the max supply of Ripple, 100 billion XRP. Are we due a shortage of that anytime soon? You know, there is a strategic reserve of XRP, and it's called Chris Larsen. You know, like we've already got one. Do we need another one? No. You know, I don't want to pick. I don't want to be, you know, necessarily pick on XRP. I mean, it's the same with ADA. It's the same with all these altcoins that they're talking about. there ain't going to be a shortage of Sol or ADA or SUI or whatever it is. Like it's just sort of, it's kind of fanciful, the idea, as Ben said, of this, this strategic reserve. You know, what's the emergency when you're going to have to deploy several billion XRP into the market? You know, and as you say, Ben, it's selling. You know,
I think it's a catchy idea. Like, it sounds good, right? It's catchy, and people like the idea. When you actually think of the implications of it, it's like, what is the point of it other than to pump our bags in the short term, and, you know, maybe to use it as something to make people in crypto like you. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and just to be clear with everybody, we're not, I think all three of us agree that we're not saying that Bitcoin shouldn't be the part of the strategic reserve, although it's debatable. But I mean, look, even Peter Schiff came out and said, hey, I think, you know, gold's great for the reserve, and isn't Bitcoin, essentially he said, is like gold 2.0, which I couldn't believe that Peter Schiff actually said that. So, I mean, if you get some of the biggest despondents on board, why not? So I can see that, but yeah, you guys make a good point. Why do we need this reserve if we're going to sell it later? And what are we really going to be doing with this? But maybe it just comes down to, you know, campaign promises. I mean, Trump said that the campaign said, hey, I want to do this stockpile for digital assets, plural. Maybe he just wants to put it back in our court and say, okay, what do the people say? What do they really want? And it's been pretty crystal clear. A lot of people, even though have been pretty beneficial for their bags, have said, no altcoins, just do Bitcoin. Let's make this reasonable. So,
well, I think I also think it sort of diminishes each one that's in it for every new one you add to it. You know, it just kind of diminishes the importance of it. If it were just Bitcoin, I think it'd be more important. But if you have Bitcoin and ETH and ADA and XRP and all these other coins, like, I don't know, it doesn't. What's the justification? I don't understand it.
I don't know. Well, let's move past this because we're going to figure this all out on Friday, and then we'll get the news instead of speculation. But let's talk about what people can do right now. We're all in our sphere of control, right? God dang, this stupid thing. I actually have done a couple of live streams before. This is actually not unbeknownst to me. So
I think StreamYard updated recently. So maybe the software is
maybe
buggers.
I got to do this, then I got to do this now. So everybody should be able to see this. Let's just move past the March 7th thing. Let me ask you this question. So how do we protect ourselves? How will we do for a portfolio allocation? And where should we be right now? I mean, Guy, you and Nick have put on some pretty great vids. There's links in the description for a couple of the most recent ones, but the channel's there as well. But the question I have then is, what's the biggest risk for crypto investors, right? Actually, just going right today, like, what are the biggest risks that you see, and what should they be actually taking a look at? And if there's anything else that you feel you want to talk about, let us know. Because right now, I've got a lot of people saying that, like you said on this one, is it over? Are we going to go to bear market, and what should we be doing with our, or what can you be doing, I guess, with your portfolio itself? Kind of a loaded question. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah. In terms of the risks of the sea, I mean, I guess the biggest risk is kind of more of the same. More of what we're experiencing at the moment: more uncertainty, more chaos. The tariffs having perhaps an inflationary effect. I mean, I've seen lots of in some cases fairly credible speculation, and I think, Ben, you alluded to this last week, that maybe Trump wants to tank the markets. Maybe we do need this short-term pain. And Ben, you cited the first year of Ronald Reagan's administration in 81 or something like that. Reagan got into office. The markets tanked for a few months and then recovered and kind of went up, went up ever since, ever after. So it could be that this is the scenario we're in now. Trump is deliberately trying to engineer the wind going out of the markets in order that we get this downturn, in order that he can pursue some of these multiple policy agendas that he has, and in theory set us all up for a nice recovery that'll coincide with the midterms. So I guess in terms of risk, the main risk is that that things continue kind of chaotic for a bit. Trump keeps on throwing kind of live hand grenades into the discourse all the time. I mean, like, a good example was all this stuff that happened, last week at the White House with Zelensky, wasn't it? Like, and however you feel about that was a hand grenade, because that's, we're witnessing the post-war transatlantic Western alliance, fracturing before our eyes, and Russia is now, it seems, being brought kind of back into the fold. There's so much political upheaval. Europe now, the UK, the EU, all these other countries that have been sort of sheltering under the American umbrella for the last few decades, and now like, shit, maybe we need to build a lot of weapons very, very quickly. The UK, which has a left-leaning government, has just slashed its foreign aid bill, has just cut foreign aid in order to basically fund an increase in defense spending. So there's so much uncertainty, there's turmoil out there. And I think this turmoil is likely to continue for a good few months at least. And I guess, it's kind of up to Donald Trump when he wants to see an end to that. But if you're an investor, I don't blame anyone who is sat on the sidelines at the moment going, I'm just going to see, how this pans out. Anyway, in terms of crypto, in terms of what your average crypto investor can do, I mean, I think there are still really interesting sectors out there in crypto. I think, for instance, one of the videos that you pulled up there was about AI agents. I still think this is a fascinating sector of the market. It's got its ass kicked over the last couple of months, almost as badly, if not as badly, as meme coins. But I still think it's absolutely fascinating as a sector. So I would counsel people, in this intervening period, now is the time to sort of start looking at these sectors that interest you, and trying to identify, what are the problems that they need to solve, because there will, like for AI agents, for instance, most of them are vaporware, but at some point, one is going to come along and really nail it. We saw like Virtual's protocol was sort of an early example of what could happen. Now that seems to have faded along with everything else, and I think probably something new will come along. But for instance, look at the problems that AI agents and that AI in general, when it intersects with crypto, what can they solve? What can they do? Because one of these projects is going to come along and be absolutely massive. So now is the time to start looking for what that might be.
Yeah, and if you're looking for data or information on that, just check out Guy, because he's done a lot of videos on those, also on Coin Bureau Club. So, Ben, the same thing. And then just a real quick recap, just to talk about the unknowns. I just saw that, I don't know if this was a story or not. French President Macron addressed the Europeans to prepare for war with Russia. And then also German Foreign Minister Baerbock giving a speech to prepare Germans for war with Russia. I don't know how far that goes, but we'll see how it does with the markets themselves. But Ben had a pretty good video on dealing with emotions. So Ben, what's the biggest risk right now for the investors, and where do you see people going from here?
I mean, I think it's just the stock market. Crypto is a risk asset. Bitcoin behaves more like a risk asset than a risk off asset, which I would say is a good thing. Everyone's made fun of gold for the last 10 years because it hasn't really done anything. So it's almost better for things to be risk assets, because more often than not, risk assets outperform risk off assets. It's just that when there are risk off times, then that's when you want to be in sort of those risk off assets. So, but I would say like the biggest risk is just the stock market. And, the one thing that markets don't like is uncertainty. And, over the last couple of years under the last administration, I know the last 2 years, not a whole lot changed, right? It was kind of boring. There wasn't really a whole lot being done. Obviously, like those fairly boring headlines, not really a whole lot going on, which a lot of people don't like. But the one thing that does like that is the market, right? The market really likes certainty and knowing that there's not going to be a lot of change. Ever since the new administration, and this often happens with new administrations, there's just uncertainty. You don't know what the new president's going to do. You don't know what they're going to say. And really, over the last 2 months, I feel like I read one headline in the morning, and then that headline is completely irrelevant by the afternoon, right? It's like, oh, Trump is imposing tariffs. And then later that afternoon, Trump's rolling them back, and I don't know. I think the markets are just kind of exhausted from it, and it's hard to, it's hard to know what's going to happen. If you guys remember back in February, they were going to introduce tariffs on Mexico and Canada, and then like last minute they said, all right, we're going to wait a month, and then after doing that, the markets went up for a while. And then they finally started to implement them, and now they're talking about rolling them back again. And I think the issue is if they do it too much, the market's just going to throw in the towel. And I think people are going to say, we'll wait until there's more. So I would argue that that's probably the biggest risk for crypto, is just all the uncertainty. If that continues, then it could be negative for crypto. I also think too, there's obviously a narrative for everything, but oftentimes between February options expiration and March options expiration in post-election years, the S&P is relatively weak. So sort of my expectation for the S&P 500 before realizing there'd be this much uncertainty was that it would probably stay weak from late February until late March. And I think options expiration is like March 22nd or something like that. So we saw that happen, and we've seen that happen before. It's not that uncommon for there to be weakness between February and March options expiration. In fact, actually, the entire pandemic crash happened between February and March options expiration, which is kind of crazy to think about. But that's what I think the biggest risk is to crypto, is just uncertainty and the stock market being somewhat weak because of that uncertainty. That could theoretically spill over into the cryptoverse.
Yeah, well said. Hey, do we get any macro data today? Is there anything coming out that's supposed to be important? Because I see like the markets are dropping a little bit.
We had initial claims. They actually came in relatively good, back at like 221,000. We're going to be getting a lot of stuff tomorrow, like all the labor stuff. A lot of the labor market data comes out tomorrow, and I don't really know where it's going to come. People keep asking, but you on one hand, you have all the layoffs from Doge, right, at the
Right.
federal level, but you also have reduced immigration. So I don't know, maybe they're going to balance each other out, because if you reduce immigration, you reduce the labor supply, right? You
Right.
reduce the labor supply. So I don't really know what we're going to see. I mean, initial claims today came in relatively okay after a pretty big jump last week.
I wonder, well, I guess it's all by surveys, but I wonder how many people actually report who's actually working for them, and especially for immigrant. I don't know. Well, let's finish up with the last one, which is this. We all try to do the best that we possibly can, especially in this market, how crazy it is. What kind of mistakes have you guys made so far that you learned from? And I'll start with Benny. We're just talking. I'll start with you. If anything,
I mean, I guess
if you've been perfect.
I guess I wasn't really expecting a strategic shitcoin reserve. So like, you know, like a lot of people were asking me to like make a video about this altcoin or that altcoin, and I was almost about to do it, and then I woke up one morning and there was this announcement. I'm like, gosh, I'm really glad I didn't make a video about that altcoin yesterday.
This is true.
So yeah, no, I think that was kind of like, I wasn't really expecting that. I don't really think a lot of people were expecting that. I think throughout this cycle, my larger mistakes were, you know, I've been very bullish on Bitcoin dominance, and I haven't really been that open-minded to many altcoins, especially early on in the Bitcoin dominance uptrend, like the Sol Bitcoin double bottom back in 2023. Like, I think I was somewhat blinded to it because dominance of Bitcoin was only like 40%, you know? And I was like, well, it's going to go to 60. But as always, there's one altcoin or a few altcoins that always outperform Bitcoin in a Bitcoin dominance uptrend. And then I started to think like, well, what's a mistake I could make that I haven't made yet? You know, because ideally you catch them before you make them. I was like, well, with Ethereum, I wonder, you know, greed goes both ways, right? You can get too greedy by waiting too long to sell. You can also get too greedy by waiting too long to buy. So like, I mean, I do own some ETH, kind of like Guy, but I'm also not really adding at the moment because, you know, there's a part of me that thinks it could go deeper into the regression band, right? You know, like it could continue to slowly go down into that regression band. And if it does, then I do think it'd be a good, you know, better accumulation opportunity, but that could be a mistake, right? You know, waiting too long to sort of flip bullish on it. I mean, Ethereum's been weak for so long. I think a lot of people have given up for it on it, and the memes are ridiculous on Ethereum now, like the open wallet with the Ethereum logo. So yeah, I do think the narrative will shift on Ethereum sometime this year, and I think it's going to be. I think the challenging part is going to be flipping with it, you know, flipping before the narrative flips. But you don't want to flip too early either. You know, you don't want to be the person that's like calling for ETH Bitcoin to go back up to the moon while it just keeps on bleeding, you know? So I think that's the other thing that I sort of think about.
Yeah, well said. Guy, what do you got? What's the biggest mistake so far?
I think I still haven't mastered the art of taking profits. I had the opportunity. I was thinking about taking profits on a few altcoins towards the end of last year, especially sort of December time. And I held off because it hadn't quite hit the rather ambitious target that I'd set for that point in the cycle. And yeah, so I wish I'd done that, because that would have, I've watched them erase a lot of the gains that they've made. The only thing I'll say in my defense is that I think when you work in this sector, every day I open my laptop in the morning and I engage with what's going on in crypto. I look at prices, I look at Twitter, I look at what's going on, because it's my job. And I would suggest to anyone out there who doesn't have to do that every single day, one of the best things that you can do when you've decided to take profits and actually taken them is to then just disengage for a while, because you will only torture yourself by logging back on and seeing, it went another 50 cents higher. I could have made, X hundred or X $1,000 more. It messes with your head. So, I would advise anyone, if you do decide to take profits, just do it and walk away for a bit. Don't let subsequent price action bother you, because there's nothing you can do about it. So that's the mistake I've made. I've been in crypto, in one way or another for 10 years now, so I first read about Bitcoin over 10 years ago, and I still haven't mastered the art of taking profits. So, I'm still a work in progress on that front. I guess another thing that I was thinking about earlier, it's sort of related to what I was saying in answer to a previous question, was like, why didn't I invest in defense stocks? Putting any ethical considerations aside,
right.
Kind of, is anyone surprised that this is where we are now? Is anyone surprised that, people are going, Jesus, we need more guns and planes, etc. And looking back on that, it's like, that would have been probably a wise addition to the portfolio, because that's the way the world is going. So if you can call that a mistake, but certainly failure to take profits is something I continue to berate myself about.
Yeah, it's when I talk about it on the channel, it's what everybody says is their number one issue. We all know how to buy dips and dollar cost average, but to take those profits is extremely difficult. And even I've still have my problems with that as well. My big problem so far is not pushing the narrative that, because we had meme coins, we had altcoins and things like that, is to really just to remind people that Bitcoin, if you hold it over, a long period of time, it'll outperform a lot of the different trash that's out there. And everybody thinks that they can just pick the magical altcoin or meme coin that's going to make it, but 99% are going to be gone. So my big thing was I talked about meme coins and how they were a gamble. But what I should have also talked about was, like, if you don't know where to put things into, like, even for me, there's so many options. I mean, Guy talked about the AI agents. They sound awesome, but if all of them are going to go down except for a couple, I don't know which one to do. Is just to maybe just put everything into Bitcoin. And I think I'm gonna remedy that coming up. But that's what I got.
There's this guy on YouTube, I've forgotten what his name is. He was a smart guy, and for ages he was banging on about something called Bitcoin dominance.
Yeah, that guy.
Really, really hitting it. And it turned out, he was pretty much nailed on with it. And I kind of feel I wish I'd taken his advice. Sometimes I wish I was just in Bitcoin.
I have it on strict authority from the comment section that Bitcoin dominance is useless.
Well,
I mean, the comment section is never wrong.
That's never wrong. We're never wrong. In fact, the comment section today, they're like, why are they so negative about our strategic reserve?
Yes. Also,
altcoins, one guy was like, the government's just stacking altcoins they believe in. Like, what are you smoking to say? Like, how can you believe that? Like, you really think the U.S. government has done the research on all these altcoins? Like, yeah, I really believe in that one.
I think.
Well, they've bought them. That's the extent of their research. They've bought all these altcoins, it would seem. So,
well, somebody did their research on meme coins because Trump and Melania were both on Solana. So at least they picked the right meme coin section.
That's the other thing about it. It's like, are we just gonna forget about that and like pretend like it didn't happen? Like the whole those meme coins. Like I feel like we sort of lose the plot because of that. It kind of shows that it's not really about believing in crypto as much as just like how can they make money and again, like, the funny thing is, and I know it's controversial, but the funny thing about it is the people that will defend them the most, the people that probably lost all their money buying the coins. But I don't really get it. I don't really see how it's just so antithetical to the whole point of Bitcoin in the first place, to just launch meme coin after meme coin and then after you launch it, pretend like you didn't and never talk about it again. I don't think it's a good thing.
No. Well, it's not, but I think this thing had to happen. I think it had to happen and had to go down like this, and we had to fail because if not, I mean, thank God it happened earlier in this bull run, if you want to call it that. I still think we could head there to a big one, but you have to go through this pain and these problems to figure out, like, oh, that's not a good investment strategy. It's the same thing like when everybody lost funds from FTX, Voyager, Celsius, and BlockFi because they left them on exchanges. We learned all the way from Mt. Gox, but we had to repeat that lesson with other people to where they would go, oh, I really should be doing cold storage. Or if you're like plan B, go, at least I'll put an ETF where it's in, with BlackRock and MicroStrategy. So I thought it had to happen.
It's as an industry, we seem to be in need of quite a few hard lessons, don't we? Because we certainly get them.
This is
it's just one hard lesson after another, isn't it? It's like, okay, yeah, we've learned the lesson about cold storage. Yeah, we're all good. Okay, don't keep your coins on exchanges. What's that? Meme coins? Okay.
Or what's that? ETFs? It's like, let's preach cold storage for 2 years after the 2022 bear market, and then everyone's just talking about ETFs now.
Yeah.
See, there you go.
Yeah. We never learn our lesson. The industry never learns their lesson.
All right. So we'll never learn. This is true. We're so back. And then, of course, no, we're not. All right. Someone, Fairfax, says, I hear the White House meeting tomorrow was canceled. Well, that would be awesome if that's actually true. But this is from the comment section, so you never know.
I haven't heard, unless that's coming down the wires as we speak.
Yeah. Wow. Someone also said that David Sachs just tweeted that they sold all the Bitcoin reserve, and that was false. So it's the comment section. What are you going to do? You guys made good points when the time comes when they have to spend from those reserves. Again, Bitcoin makes sense, but again, I look at some other ones, I'm like, well, even Ethereum, isn't it still inflationary? And I know it went deflationary for a while, so just wait for that to happen.
Yeah, no, it's inflationary. So again, it kind of just raises the question, why do you need a reserve for it? What scarcity are we really expecting? And if you have scarcity, what's the point? You're gonna sell it to lower the price of Ethereum, so more people can buy. I don't. It just the more you think about it, the less sense it makes.
But they put it. It's weird, but they put it out again. I think Trump was just saying, "Hey, I've made some promises. Let's put it out there and see which ones actually have traction." Yeah, no. Tim says, "Dunk on these biased bag holders." That's pretty funny. Danny asks, "Why?" Yes, why is Charles Hoskinson not invited? That's a good question. You'd think that if they put it in the tweet and they're talking about it for serious, and the person that is pretty much the head and the figurehead of that crypto project is not invited, you have to ask yourself, was that even real? Was that even a really thought out process? I don't know.
Yeah. It's it all, like I say, this kind of all contribute, all the speculation around who's invited, who's not invited. It's sort of, it just kind of gives me the impression that it's perhaps just, it's almost like the reward to the crypto industry for all the support that it showed to Trump. All the, so many of these projects, so many crypto entities gave so much money to Trump. And I can't shake the feeling that maybe this White House crypto meeting is like, yes, thank you very much. Yes. Here's your meeting at the White House. Yeah, we're going to talk crypto now. Yeah. And nothing, that's it. It's like, thanks for your money. Here's your have a canapé, sit at the table, feel like you're making a change. Right, time's up. Piss off.
Maybe it's just a big Squid Game for everybody to come in there.
See you in 2026 in time for the midterms.
I also think you can be pro crypto and be anti altcoin reserve. I don't just because you're against a reserve for altcoins doesn't mean you're anti crypto. I just think it's not what the industry should be focusing on.
Yeah. Well, everything will come to light tomorrow. That is for sure. And then Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, said there's going to be a big announcement. Hopefully it's not an announcement to an announcement, but we'll see. All right. So I'm looking for questions.
I say, if it's something that says points to the direction of travel, then it could be interesting and it could make a difference. But I just can't think, I can't imagine what that might be. Do you know what I mean? It's what could they say? What could they say that would say, okay, here we go? I can't imagine it.
I don't know. I can't imagine. But there was a question where someone says, is everybody is everybody negative, and do you feel like the bear market is upon us? And I can't find it again, but it is pretty negative. And even and it's something to be said, like usually in a bear market, even really positive news doesn't really change things too much. Now, obviously a tweet from a president naming names of certain crypto altcoins, yes, that'll do it. But it seems like we get nothing but good news after good news after good news, and we don't see too much of a price appreciation. I think we're still below 90,000. So is this, does anybody want to say it? It's a bear market?
I don't think we're necessarily in a bear market yet. Like I say, these sorts of pullbacks are normal for bull markets, but we're knocking on the door. I think, we need to see some sort of turnaround, but again, it can only really come from the macro. So yeah, we'll see.
All right. And then I'll leave it like this. We'll get out of here. Nothing burger from J2 Day. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That's why I can't go in heavy, but I mean, play it as you will. I still am dollar cost averaging Bitcoin. Once it went below around 80,000, I was like, wow, well, it's not 108, it's below 90. I got to start buying. And then of course, now it is below that again. So unfortunately or fortunately, I have to buy because I still think there's a long way to go, but I could be wrong. Anyhow, that's it for today, everybody. What's up, Ben?
It also depends on your time horizon, like I think time horizon is.
Yeah, I think we all got a long runway as long as you look at it 4 or 5, 10 years out. But some people don't. Some people look at it 4 or 5 days out. And that's why meme coins were so popular.
People today look at it 4 or 5 minutes out. I mean, with the whole meme coin mania, it really got to the point where it was literally like you were late if you got there 30 seconds late. I think there was all these charts about how it would go up for like a minute and then crash.
Yeah, man, we had to go through it. It sucks, but it is what it is. Hopefully now it's amazing. I'll leave it like, this is where people become Bitcoin maximalists, stuff like this. So I think there's a Bitcoin maximalist born every minute. All right, everybody. So thanks again. Links in the description. Go watch those videos from Ben and Guy. They're really good. But that's it. Next week, we've got it on Guys, I believe.
Yep.
And let's do it. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you on the next one.